Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're covering the LSU Tigers. LSU, under first-year head coach Brian Kelly, won the SEC West, played in the SEC title game against Georgia, lost, and then ended it with a good bowl win against Purdue. But all in all, it was a good year for for LSU. 10-4, which is a good year one. Is as good of a year one as any head coach could ask for. They lost to Florida State last year in what was one of the craziest endings I've ever seen to a college football game. Florida State was leading 24, I think it was like 24-6 in the fourth quarter, and then LSU was starting to make a comeback, but blocked extra point by an FSU player is what sealed the victory for the Seminoles. It was a heartbreaking loss if you are a LSU fan, but LSU was able to snap out of it and come back with a four-game winning streak against the Southern Jaguars, Mississippi State Bulldogs, and New Mexico Lobos. They continued their momentum with against the Auburn Tigers on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn gave LSU a run for their money. Auburn was leading 17-0 for the first three quarters of the game, or excuse me, for majority of the game, but LSU had to spring 21 unanswered points to come back and win the game. It was a very tough matchup for them uh, in that even though it wasn't a victory. And then on the road at home against Tennessee, they got absolutely boat raced, 40-13. Tennessee had a good year last year, 11-2, won an Orange Bowl. Hendon Hooker, before he got injured, looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate before he got hurt, and Tennessee just walked all over LSU. Then they go on the road and beat Florida in Florida's homecoming weekend, 45-35. Then they beat Ole Miss to head into their bye week. Head into their bye week to prepare for Alabama. And Alabama and LSU had, as they normally do, a tightly contested matchup, one of the most tightly contested matchups of 2022. It seems like every time LSU and Alabama come together, there's always fireworks, and the endings are climatic. And LSU walked away with an overtime victory, 32-31 over the Crimson Tide. Then the very next week against Arkansas, they had a surprisingly bad performance against Arkansas. I thought LSU was just gonna wipe the floor with Arkansas in this game, especially considering the fact that Arkansas had a couple of injuries at the quarterback spot and they had to play a third string quarterback. But somehow, um, Arkansas, even with a third string quarterback, only lost by 3 points, which is crazy. I remember watching that game and I was very surprised at how bad LSU performed. Uh, One positive light about that game was their linebacker, Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins absolutely destroyed Arkansas in that game. That man had 4.5 sacks. 4.5 sacks. Uh, it was just he was by far the player of the game, and not just the player of the game, and he's the best player in my opinion on that LSU team, offense and defense. He was a monster that week, and he's been a monster since he's joined LSU. Then they continued their momentum, 31 point victory over the UAB Blazers, and then they had by far the worst loss of their entire season on the road against Texas A&M, a team who lost to Appalachian State, barely beat Miami, lost to Auburn, who was 5-7 themselves, and still Texas A&M beat LSU. And this is one of those situations where you say in college football, when it comes to rivalries, sometimes you can throw the records out. And Texas A&M and LSU have been end of the year rivals ever since Texas A&M joined the conference in 2012, and it was a tight matchup between Texas A&M and LSU up until the end when Texas A&M started to pull away 38-23. It was just a bad loss if you're an LSU fan. Then the very next week they get just absolutely just blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship game. Jalen Carter at one point had a sacked Jaden Daniels, who was the LSU quarterback, by just holding him in the air with one arm and pointing towards the sky. Georgia just absolutely manhandled the Tigers in that game. Um, but LSU was able to end it on a good note by thumping Purdue 63-7 to make it 10-4 season. Um, Not surprising that LSU would have success under Brian Kelly. He's been a very good coach at Cincinnati, at Notre Dame, and at LSU. It's proven to be no different. So if you're an LSU fan, you're probably thinking, well, they could do it again, make it to an SEC title game again. Well, in order to do that, you have to have a year similar to what you had in 2022. You're on the road, in a neutral matchup against Florida State in Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. I think the heartbreaking loss of to Florida State last year will motivate LSU to right that wrong and make sure that they finish the game this time and walk away with a victory. So I'm gonna say LSU beats Florida State. They're gonna come back home to play Grambling. Uh, they should beat them handily. Same thing with Mississippi State. Same thing with Arkansas. So nice little 4-0 start if you're an LSU fan. Then they're going to be on the road at Ole Miss. I think they'll lose on the road at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive play callers, one of the best offensive minds in college football, still has yet to have in my opinion, a significant win as a head coach in college football, especially at Ole Miss. And I think a victory for LSU would do just that for him. So I think LSU will lose on the road at Ole Miss. LSU will play at Missouri the very next week. I'm not a fan of Missouri's head coach Eli Drinkwitz. I don't like him as a coach. I don't like his personality. I like Missouri's defense and their defensive coordinator, Blake Baker, who had Missouri ranked in the top 25 in FBS uh, in terms of total defense nationally. So for that's a pretty good side of the ball that Missouri has, but I just don't think Missouri is at the level to compete against the top teams in the SEC. Uh, I think LSU wins that game handily. I think they beat Auburn handily. First year head coach Hugh Freeze. It's going to take him a couple of years to get things going at War Eagle. Uh, they come back against Army. That should be another victory. Then they get a bye week. Then after the bye week, Alabama. The Alabama and LSU. It's one of the top top 50. I think it's one of the top 15 rivalries in college football. They They don't like each other. They play each other tough. The games are always crazy and hectic. Uh, I remember the 2011 game, the game of the century, as it was once called, between the 2011 LSU Tigers and the 2011 Alabama Crimson Tide. There was so much NFL talent from both sides on both teams. No matter if Alabama had the ball or if LSU had the ball, it was just a defensive matchup that was a lot of fun to watch. LSU won that game in overtime, 9-6, and then Alabama got revenge on them in the national championship game a few weeks later by beating them to win another national title under Nick Saban. LSU and Alabama, always a fun rivalry to watch. I think LSU can go on the road and beat Alabama again. You know, Alabama last year didn't really play at Alabama standards, and it's kind of hard to judge them too much because they're better than majority of the teams in the FBS anyway. But it's just that Alabama has been in the league for so long that when you see a little bit of a drop off, you're like, "Well, what's going on with Alabama? What's going on with Alabama? Why are they playing like this?" It's the same thing for Clemson, and it'll be the same thing for Georgia. When they have just a little bit of drop off, people will think that they're falling off completely, which I don't think is a wise evaluation to make. LSU was they're not afraid to play Alabama. They're not afraid to play on the road at Alabama. Um, they get up to play Alabama every single year. Alabama is their biggest rival, and they will always have this game highlighted in red. They can't wait to play those guys. I think LSU wins. I think they beat my Gators. You know, but if you're a Gator fan like me, maybe you're hoping that LSU will go through an emotional and mental roller coaster with the Alabama game a week before. So, but even if that were the case, I don't think Florida has the talent to beat LSU, and it's going to be on the road at Death Valley for Florida. So I don't see Florida beating LSU at all. Then they're going to have Georgia State the very next week. That should be another victory, and then they're going to have Texas A&M I think LSU is going to want revenge for what happened last year. Texas A&M and LSU don't really like each other that much. It's been a little bit of a salty rivalry between these two, and LSU and Texas A&M always look to embarrass one another. LSU did it to Texas A&M in 2021 when they were having a bad year, and then Texas A&M flipped the script a season later in 2022. So an 11-1 record. That's what I predicted for LSU. Only loss coming against Ole Miss. I think they can get revenge on Florida State for what happened last year, and I see them going on the road and beating Alabama again. I don't think Alabama is the team that that we've grown accustomed to over the years. I think Alabama is having a little bit of a drop off, and I think right now, if you're Brian Kelly, if there was ever a time to finally uh, climb over that hump and not and compete for national titles, it should be right now because Alabama is slowly but surely tailing off. Uh, and they're really your toughest competition in the SEC West. It's not like in the SEC East where you have to deal with Georgia and Tennessee. For LSU, it's mainly just Alabama, and it'll be easier for you to get past them than it would be playing in the SEC East. And you better capitalize now because the SEC is not going to get any easier when Texas and Oklahoma head into the fray. So 11-1 record. That's my prediction for the LSU Tigers in the 2023 season.